Hey guys, and welcome back. So in this video, I just wanted to talk about the current state of remote play between PS4 and Vita. So as many of you already know, I've owned a PS4 for quite a while now, since launch pretty much. And I did do a remote play video before, just testing the lag. Wasn't really comprehensive, just a quick video test. So in this video, I wanted to talk about, after having much more experience outside of Killzone, which was the only game I played before, I just want to talk about the current state of remote play, like its strengths, its weaknesses, where Sony can improve, and does it live up to the hype or does it kind of fall flat? So first, before I get into everything else, I just want to talk about the general strengths, weaknesses, and misconceptions about remote play. So first, we'll start with its strengths. So first, we'll talk about the lag, I guess. So the lag is 2 frames. About 1 to 2 frames of lag. So it's basically not noticeable at all in 99% of circumstances. So for those of you who have tried remote play on PS3, the lag was maybe about 4 to 5 frames. Don't quote me on that, but it was definitely much higher than this. So although games are playable, they were playable on PSP, such as Shadow of the Colossus, God of War Collection. Those were playable through remote play. They weren't ideal, and there was always something, you could always tell there was a bit of lag. On Vita, it's like 1 to 2 frames, so it's so small, it's just not noticeable for 99% of the time. Maybe you might notice it a little bit in some circumstances, especially in Twitch-like shooters, but we'll get to that later. But for games that run generally at 30 frames per second, or slower paced games, even like a game like Infamous, for example, it's totally playable in Infamous. Trolls like to harp on this lag point. They love to harp on the lag point because Wii U is pretty much 1-to-1 with the Wii U tablet is 1-to-1 with the Wii U console and what appears on your TV screen. So the Wii U is faster, about 2 frames faster than the Vita. But really, it's still completely playable on Vita. There is lag, but you won't notice it. And I don't even know why I'm spending so much time talking about it, because you will not notice it. And for those of you who have tried it, it's not a big deal at all. So that's a positive point for the Vita. The lag is really not an issue at all. So the second thing, the second good point for the Vita here is for remote play is range. So the range is much greater than Wii U. Basically, taking the Wii U out of the room, the Wii U tablet out of the room and going to a different room, causes some distortion, causes some connection issues, and it will just lose connection basically after a few meters from your console. So it's only really useful, off-screen play is only useful if your TV is being used by someone else, or if you want to basically have it in your hands while you're watching the football game or whatever. So it's basically that's its only use. Well, with remote play, even if you're directly connected, if you're not set up over the internet, which we'll get into later, through a direct connection, the range is much farther. For example, I can go outside in my backyard while my PlayStation 4 is in my basement and still continue my game. I can go 2 floors up and still continue my game. I'm not sure exactly what the effective range is, but it is several times farther than the Wii U range. And also, since you can connect online, you can basically play it anywhere. And although there is a little bit more lag when you're playing through online connection, it's still playable for many games. So I have taken my Vita to work and continued a game of Mercenary Kings online while at work. So I was playing my PS4 on my Vita while at work, which was amazing, with very minimal lag. And lag will only get better as our online infrastructure improves, which is great. So another positive thing is that you can run a PS4 game while having a Vita game on standby in the background, which is great. You don't have to, it doesn't take any power on the Vita at all. You can keep your Vita game running, just pop into remote play a PS4 game, pop back into the Vita game, no problem. And finally, it's supported with virtually all PS4 games. So the whole, troll brigade coming against remote play by saying they promised it on PS3. They promised all games will be supporting on PS3 through remote play. It kind of falls apart because with 2 points. So one, Sony never promised all games will be playable with PS3 and Vita through remote play. They never promised anything of the sort. They showed some a Killzone demo being played. They showed a few things, but they never came out and outright said that virtually all games will be playable ever. PS3 just couldn't handle it. It needs the resources to, make the games look better. And many times, even through hacked firmware, they were able to play games like Grand Theft Auto 5 and such like that on Vita, but the games crashed like crazy all the time. So it just shows that PS3 needs that extra power. PS4 was built for it, so all they literally do is they have to flip a switch. So you basically intentionally have to block it in order for it not to be in a PS4 game. So it is in virtually all PS4 games, and they were really wrong about that. So anyway, but there are some downsides, of course, namely 3. The first being that there is a 30 frames per second lock, making it not ideal for some 60 frames per second games, such as fighting games or Twitch shooters like Call of Duty, or indie games like Resogun, which, in my opinion, need the 60 frames per second. I know some of you have been playing Resogun at Remote Play, saying that it's great. I've been having a little bit of trouble just because I'm so used to I need the fluidity in a game like that. Second problem is video artifacting. So, many of you may not know what this is, some of you may not notice it, but if you watch a 1080p YouTube video, for example, or 720p YouTube video, and then you go play a 720p or 1080p video game, the video game will be cleaner, because in YouTube videos you have something what you call artifacting, and the artifacting is evident in both PS4 recordings and in PS4 Remote Play. It's just part of the video. It just results in an image that's less clean. The image quality is less clean, and it's not as clean as native resolution Vita games. So there is a little bit of that, and that makes it a little harder to aim at really far away targets or to sometimes read font. But really, it's not that big of a deal. And the last downside is that since many games were designed with 1080p in mind on PS4, text font, aiming reticules, and targets are often much smaller than they would be in a purely portable format, making the 5-inch screen, sort of hard to deal with at times, especially given that Vita's resolution is 544p, which is a quarter of 1080p resolution. So something which may appear very small but still visible and sharp on the PS4 on a nice big 1080p screen will kind of maybe appear, a little fuzzy or a little hard to see or a little hard to aim at on Vita. But really, the positives outweigh the negatives. Everything is totally playable. So, Remote Play is a good feature that should be supported properly. However, there seems to be a lot of improvement that needs to be made in the way of third-party publishers and the way they've been applying it. So, I just made a short list of categories of Remote Play implementation that I've had for, my experiences in the last few months. That the experiences that I've had here. So, there's basically 3 categories, going from worst implementation of Remote Play to best implementation of Remote Play. So the first category is called the bare bones. The notable offender on this list is NBA 2K14. However, there are many other offenders on this list. This type of Remote Play implementation just sees the developer merely enable it and then walk away from it. So they spend virtually no time seeing if it works with the default control scheme. So the default control scheme basically uses the touchscreen as the touchpad. You have your face buttons; those are fine. The triggers, which act as R1 and L1 on the DualShock, and the back touch, being the top 2 buttons, are your L2 and R2, and the bottom 2 buttons on the back touch are your L3 and R3. So the back touch, it's there. I'm happy it's there. I'm happy that we have that option to use it, and it certainly makes games that, let's say, wouldn't be playable at all on PS Vita through Remote Play completely playable. However, if you're going to use it for R2 and L2 on your controller, you have to make sure that you don't use R2 and L2 a lot in your game in the first place, because it's just not comfortable to use the back touch that much. Especially for, because it's not a button. You don't realize sometimes, you can't feel it, you don't know where your hands are, your hands get lost in the back touch a little bit, you're not sure which button you're hitting, because if, for example, if your fingers go in the middle of the back touch, you don't know, where it is, you don't know if you're actually touching the button or not, so that becomes a big problem if R2 and L2 are integral to your game, like they are in NBA 2K14. So R2 is your sprint, L2 is your guard, and those are, crucial features, and using those with the back touch just makes it's obnoxious. You like to have to constantly hold the back touch to sprint and constantly hold the back touch when you're on defense to guard. It's just really obnoxious and uncomfortable. And like sometimes my finger slips off, sometimes I hit R3 by accident or something. I don't know where my hands are. So those should have really been switched to R and L, and the R and L functionality should have been switched to the back touch. So basically, the bare bones is a very lazy way of doing it, and devs should kind of stray away from it completely. So the next category is called the button swap. So the notable offenders in this list are Battlefield 4 and Killzone Shadowfall pre-patch. So this type is basically bare bones remote play implementation, but the devs actually tested it out and saw that the game didn't work properly with the default control screen, which they should have done in NBA 2K14. So they did a minor button swap for a tweak. So this is prominent in first-person shooters, for example, Killzone and Battlefield. So what they did here was they basically, at the beginning, kept the controls the same, found out that R2 and L2 with the back touch is terrible for aiming and shooting, and just swapped it with the triggers. So now your trigger, your R2 becomes your R on the Vita instead of going to the back touch. So it becomes much more playable instead of unplayable, because as far as I'm concerned, using the back touch to aim and shoot would have been completely unplayable in Battlefield 4 and Killzone Shadowfall. So that's what they did. So Battlefield 4 kept this, which is, it's not bad, but it's not ideal. But Battlefield 4 is actually a pretty good game because you don't your R1 and L1 aren't really used that much, so that's fine. Killzone in the end decided that this wasn't a good control scheme, even though they did change it to the triggers, the aiming and shooting to the triggers. So they changed it again in light of Assassin's Creed 4, like what Assassin's Creed 4 did from remote play, which was a much better implementation. So they changed shoulder buttons or the click triggers to the left bottom and right bottom of your touchscreen, which you should be seeing now. So that works out much, much, much better. It's much more comfortable. And they actually changed it so that the back touch is like one solid button on both sides. So, your fingers won't get lost in like the middle of a dead zone or something like that. So, very good for Killzone post-patch, a good, follow-up and implementation. But the button swap basically is to show that the devs actually tried it, saw it didn't work, and now it works, but with minimal effort. So now the third and best category here is the fully customized implementation. So the notable games that use this are Assassin's Creed 4, as I mentioned, and the recently released infamous Second Son. So this is the best kind of implementation. So it's obvious that devs spent a decent amount of time making sure that they had the best possible control scheme given the buttons that are most used in the game. So not only were the triggers repositioned, like in the swap, the back touch is also limited to buttons you don't rely on much, or is taken out completely, as in the case of infamous Second Son, which is really the best way to use it. This implementation just shows that the devs actually spent a significant amount of time and are designed their game and designed the control scheme around it. And Assassin's Creed 4 actually did it perfectly because they basically swapped L2 and R2 for L and R on the Vita. So you're aiming the gun, shooting the gun is perfectly done. Your running, of course, is done with R. The back touch is barely used at all. And the other functions in the game, aside from aiming, shooting, running, hitting, are all done with the face button. So the extra stuff, everything you have to use for a touchscreen, is all things you don't necessarily need to do in battle. So the game is perfectly playable on Vita, and I'd argue that it's the best implementation of remote play of any game, with Second Son being a runner-up because the missile move that you have in Second Son, of course, is mapped to the front screen, which you have to actually take your thumb off the moving thing off the left stick to use, which is a problem. But still, it's much better than if it weren't for the default control scheme. So good on those games for doing that. So this brings us to the last section. How can Sony improve remote play? So I'm not sure where the 30 frames per second limitation comes from. I don't know if it's on the Vita side or the PS4 side, but I would like to see them try to get that up to 60 frames per second. So when asked about the frame rate of Remote Play, Sony responded that it's 30 frames per second at this time. I don't want to run away with that and say, oh, they said at this time, so that means it's confirmed 60 frames per second later. No, don't look too far into that, but at least it sort of says that there may be hope down the road for 60 frames per second in Remote Play. And if there is hope, they need to get on that. It would make Twitch shooters, fighting games, and other games like that more playable without feeling like something is, off. So, but secondly, and more importantly, Sony needs to let us, the consumer, fully customize the controls of the game. So, when you're running a PSP game, I think you can hold the screen, and that brings up a menu where you can sort of customize the controls. So you can map the face buttons to the right stick, or the D-pad to the right stick, or things like that. So, Remote Play needs that button mapping feature. So they basically need to give us fully customizable. So in NBA, if I didn't want to sprint with the back touch, I should be able to map it to whatever button I want. I should be able to map it to X if I wanted to, the sprint button. Or if I didn't want to guard, my guard could be my L1, or my L rather, on the Vita. They need to make it fully customizable, and it's very easy to do from the Vita itself. You don't have, the devs don't have to necessarily even program that into the game. So if they forget and just go with a bare bones implementation, at least Sony has our back because they give us a menu where we can swap the controls around. That really has to be done, and in the end it should be up to us whether we want to use the front touch for something or the back touch for something to make up for the lack of Vita's buttons, as different people have different comfort levels with the touch controls in the Vita. Some people hate using the back touch at all and would rather rather stop moving and use the front touch, where some people are completely fine with the back touch because it lets you move and have more access to buttons at the same time. I sort of fall in between. I don't mind the back touch. I like the functionality that it allows, but I don't want to use it for integral features. So in a game like NBA, I would designate the back touch, for like calling plays or something like that. Whereas like sprinting and guarding, which are essential things you're using all the time, should be done with actual buttons. So with that said, Remote Play is still a fantastic, game-changing next-gen feature. It is definitely my favorite feature of next-gen, with sharing coming as a close second. So I can only hope that Sony continues to tweak it and to make it better for all of us. So for those of you who have tried Remote Play, what are ways that you feel Sony could make it better? And what's your favorite game to play through Remote Play? Anyway, so thanks for watching, guys. I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Take care. Bye.